live in 2 minutes.
There it is.
So tell me when you're coming over now. Shit. Tuesday. If it's not enough, it'll be part of
Several
the
government administrations and a host of legislators spent over a decade and numerous rounds of public consultation agreeing the specific provisions of the National Conservation Act, which passed unanimously in 2013. The Act establishes the National Conservation Council that was created to promote and secure biological diversity and the sustainable use of natural resources in the Cayman Islands. Many in our community feel directly the continuing loss of Cayman's natural heritage and are growing increasingly concerned that our native habitats and unique plants and animals will not be known by the generations that follow us. At present, the Act provides the only legal means of giving effect to the constitutionally protected principles of sustainability, whereby social, economic, and environmental perspectives have equal weight at the table. The National Conservation Council has a mandate to ensure that we can continue to enjoy the magic of Cayman's biodiversity for many generations to come. But to be successful, we all must work together as a community to build and preserve the Cayman that we want and wish for our children to inherit.
Good afternoon and welcome to the National Conservation Council. As we have a quorum, I will call the meeting to order. And first up is attendees. John, do we have any apologies?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have apologies from member Nick Foster and apologies from Handel Whitaker.
Okay. Members present, are there any declaration of interest in today's agenda? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to the annual register of interest. John, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just for members, register of interests were due in by July 30th. It was sent out a couple of times to members, but if anybody did not get theirs in, please still do submit it, even if it's couple of weeks late. I'm sure they'll be happy to get it still. Thank you.
We are late. If anybody's still
No,
not done
I
it?
did it.
Okay, good, because we want to beat Mr. Woody's target of 80%, right? Yeah, okay. So let's move on to the last general meeting minutes, please. And John, if you could bring those up for us.
That's the
Alternatively, we could, everybody had a chance to read them. Are there
I
any
have not.
corrections or additions to the minutes?
I sent a couple of grammatical corrections, I think, to you. I forwarded.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed them. And I'm sorry.
Okay. Just it was nothing about the content. Just a couple of. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So just a typo and
Yeah, yeah,
editorial.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
perfect. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of 25 March 2026?
I will motion to accept.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Against? And abstentions? Motion's carried. Minutes are adopted. Thank you. Um, Now on to the fun part, the updates for council, starting with administrative issues. And I think, Gina, you're going to, no, you're not, talk about the judicial review of feral cats in environmentally sensitive areas.
I can take that, Mr. Chairman, as it's very short. Council remember from the last meeting that we have the judicial review pending. We still await the court's ruling on that application for leave. It got to the judge a couple of months ago, but just waiting for the ruling. So nothing much we can do until then, depending on the court's decision. Council's legal representatives will then advise for council's decision on what steps to take next, but it'll be a cascade of decisions once we know what the decision is. But as it's still a live case, there's nothing else we can really say about that right now.
Okay. Council, please speak up if you have some points of clarification on any of the updates, okay? Next up is the Freedom of Information item. John?
Yes, sir. So the DOE acts as secretary for the council, and so we receive any FOIs and handle them. We received 3 that were for both the DOE and the NCC. We just handled it administratively. They're up on the DOE FOI public disclosure page on the website if anybody is really interested. It was 3 of them. First one was regarding authorization for the take of terrestrial protected species. I'm going to condense them down a lot for purposes of this. We provided Section 20 permits from 2015 to the present that the department has that are authorizing the take of terrestrial protected species. And we sent them in electronic form. We identified policies, guidelines, and protocols that were available. Most of them were on the department's website, doe.ky, but there were a couple of additional ones for internal guidance that we also sent, as well as a copy of a standard license that we give out illustrating the typical conditions that apply to whatever permits are issued under delegated authority on behalf of the NCC. The second FOI request was regarding any trapping, baiting, poisoning, capture, control, or removal of animals in Grand Cayman by the DOE, NCC, or agents. So the only activities relevant to that request are all publicly documented programs. First up is the Green Iguana Culling Program, which is administered through a contracted cull manager. That's a private company who then subcontracts out to all the cullers and receives the iguanas, weighs them, and makes sure that they get paid per iguana. All that information on the program is, again, on our website, doe.ky. There's also a selection of marine research, conservation programs, and of course, fishing permits that are administered by the DOE. But that includes DOE's ongoing marine research programs like our shark program, our turtle conservation program, where we have to capture at least temporarily those animals, as well as obviously the issuance of fishing permits. So anybody doing fish pots and stuff is capturing animals in Grand Cayman. And again, all that information is publicly on our website. The DOE also does a fair bit of ad hoc wildlife rescue. So the public reports an injured wildlife, our officers respond and try and rescue the animal if we can. As these activities are operational and not part of any particular program, there's no discrete record of when somebody calls us up for a whistling duck and we go out and try and catch it. But such responses may include coordinating veterinary care when we can get the animal, and then where the veterinarian recommends they undertake humane euthanasia of the animal if the vet feels they can't be saved. And then the last FOI request, the third FOI request, was a 9-part one with subparts, so I'm going to really condense it, requesting for any and all records regarding the DOE or NCC or any agents engaging in cat culling activities, how they are carried out, by who, the effect of the work, and records of the related deliberations and decisions. So DOE supplied the requested documents that were available, much of which is already publicly on our website. The most relevant information being the DOE Little Cayman Cat Trapping Report, which is on our website, the DOE report on the health of the feral cats that we were encountering, and their impacts on wildlife, also on our website. The Conservation Council's sensitive area cat control procedures, which are on the council website. And of course, the 2022 and 2025 NCC meeting records, where those decisions were discussed in public and taken. And those are the live videos which are referenced on the council website and goes back to the YouTube link where everybody is probably watching this meeting now. And all of those had redactions applied to them where disclosure would involve the unreasonable disclosure of personal information. So like people's names and stuff because they have a fish pot permit. We didn't give out the names because, yeah. That's the FOIs, sir.
Thank you, John. Any questions about the FOIs? There's some overlap between them.
Mm-hmm.
There was, and we don't know who did them, and we didn't ask. They just got treated as any other FOI, but they were quite extensive, took a lot of DOE resources to fulfill them.
So some of the redactions might actually relate to the individual or individuals who requested the FOI in the first place.
Yes, they
But
absolutely could.
we are blind as to who they
Yes.
are. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the last point under administrative updates, John, is the Bat House appeal to Cabinet.
Did you want me to take that one?
If you want to.
Yeah, so I think members will recall that we had an appeal against the decision of the DOE to require 2 bat houses to be installed as mitigation for the removal of one that was adjacent to the chiller plant construction site. The appeal was around the fact that we asked for 2 instead of just 1. But as it turns out, the fact that we asked for 2 turned out to be a prudent move because the first bat house that was erected as a replacement, the bats did not occupy. It was the second one that was put in place that they occupied. So long story short, we've been working with the DART folks who were the objectors to this around the fact that now that we know that it is a second house that is occupied and not the first, we're happy for the first house to now be removed. So that is ongoing, following counts by our terrestrial resources unit about emergence from the bat house, and just to make sure that the empty one really truly is empty. And we've done all that rather dramatically. They were moments away from taking down the occupied bat house when we caught them. So the right house got taken down in the end. It was all a good ending, but it was very close. We're now hoping that because there are no longer 2 houses there, that the appellants will withdraw the appeal because really the substance of the appeal isn't there anymore. So that's our hope. And I know the chair has been working and talking to the people at the DART along with us. So everybody's kind of been in the loop in terms of what we've been trying to do. And hopefully now this appeal will go away, hopefully.
We will see.
Yeah, we will.
I think we have a little more chatting to do on that.
Yeah.
Do we know how many, what the capacity, maximum capacity of the house is?
I don't have that number, Kathleen.
Okay.
The house itself, and I don't even want to say what the bat count is because I haven't heard offhand. I don't know if anybody has, but
But we're dealing with 2 different
yeah,
occupations
Okay.
of by the bats of different types of houses.
yeah,
The ones that Gina was talking about that's just been removed is just a roost,
yes,
whereas the others that we're still under discussion about whether to relocate them or not, those are maternal roosts. So they have hundreds of
bats.
females with pups inside, whereas the other roost was just anywhere from 5 to a couple dozen
Yeah,
individuals, something like that.
yeah.
Who is our sage of bats?
Well, the terrestrial resources unit at the DOE is really the place where we're getting our advice from. And I have to say that this is something, Kathleen, that we're learning all the time as well. We've talked to the National Trust in terms of the exclusions they do on houses for people,
Right.
trying to understand what they've learned. There's not been a lot of exclusions from bat houses themselves, so it's new territory really, and we've been following guidelines. For example, from the UK, they have a set of guidelines on bat exclusions and mitigation for impacts of construction for bats. So we've followed those. We've used our own knowledge. We've monitored the houses that are, in question. And basically, we took the precautionary approach with respect to the first sort of relocation and removal, which is why we required the 2 houses, because nobody really knew what the bats would opt to do. And it turns out that, like I said, we were correct to make that call because they occupied the second house that was installed and not the first. So,
Well, I was just wondering, because, all right, we had, last I knew was Merlin Tuttle was
Yeah.
our go-to bat expert.
well, we used to actually consult also with a lady called Annie Band that Lois Blumenthal,
BAND.
BAND, but I'm not sure that Annie is working anymore in this field. But certainly for a while, she'd come down and she did counts. We did some misnetting in various areas.
In GC,
Pardon?
in Grand Cayman.
In Grand Cayman, yes.
What about in the BRAC?
I don't think we did any specific field work on the BRAC at the time. We just weren't resourced really at the time. I don't even know if we had
I'm just very
a
concerned that
terrestrial resources unit at that time.
my little tiny cave that I have in the back of my house,
Yeah.
back of my property, I should say, is virtually nil compared to what I used to see them coming out. Certainly not any big dust cloud or anything coming out, but we had a nice little stream of bats that would come out of there, and now none.
Yeah. Well, disturbance is a really significant thing for bats. So we do have, absolutely, there's work to be done on the species.
But the bat box, the bat houses, thank you. Go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say it's different species of bat that utilizes the bat houses, so
True.
that's not even going to fix that problem.
Yeah.
Have better controls.
Because actually, I've got the ones, the little ones in the back, and then the bigger ones were in the front.
Right. Okay.
It's worth saying, I think, that the Bat House program has done great things for this protected species.
Yeah.
But throughout, how many boxes do we have? Something like,
Total number?
is it 50?
Something like that. Yeah.
50, 54. They are aging,
Hmm.
and the bats season the houses quite
Well,
successfully. And those seasoned aging houses, they're made out of different materials, different kinds of wood. Some are treated, shouldn't be, but I was just looking at a couple the other day, and they are literally falling out,
Yes.
falling apart. So this is going to be a problem that we're going to face immediately with the other bat houses needing replacement. Or do we just let them fall apart and lose them altogether? So the work that the Terrestrial Resources Unit is doing on developing a policy for the relocation or replacement of houses is extremely important, yeah.
sorry.
No, go.
I was just going to say that we do have an internal meeting next week to discuss that standard operating procedure for exclusions. So, and following that, then we're going to be sending it out to council and other stakeholders for commenting and input. So, hopefully, and we're going to share that also with the appellants on this one case. So, yeah, hopefully, if we work together, we can figure this out.
Well, Gina, reiterating what I'm saying is mine's an actual, not a house, but a cave.
Yes.
So it concerns me that, in their natural habitat, they're going away. And
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you all have someone that, takes and coming over to the BRAC to just kind of,
Take
they
a
can
look.
use my cave because I know it personally, to look at it and see if there's something going on in there
Okay.
or not going on.
we'll start, I've taken a note, Kathleen, and I'll bring it up with the folks in the Terrestrial Resources Unit.
I appreciate it, because
They've got
really
some-
they are missing
Yeah.
on South Side at least.
And Nick Ebanks is a great resource.
Yeah,
He has a lot of history
Yeah.
working with bats.
and he's over there all the time, actually.
He's there
so,
on site.
yeah.
Question, can the public, like, still get bat houses? Like, because you can purchase one, right, and put it up? Like, we did that several years ago in the house that we used to live in. Don't live there anymore, but is that still that's still a thing? It is. However,
However, the National Trust needs funding to build them. They're not, a lot of people think they're like bird houses because
Yeah,
they
no,
look
no,
like
no,
that
no,
from
no,
the
I know,
outside.
they're not, yeah.
But they're full of panels
Yeah, no,
inside.
yeah.
And they're expensive to build because
Yeah.
there's a lot of material involved.
Yeah.
We don't like to use treated lumber. We like to use like pressurized marine grade kind of plywood instead because it's done with heat rather than chemicals. And anyway, long story short, it's expensive to make. So we are looking for funding to be able to pay somebody to build the
That's-
bat
I was
houses
just-
for us, so then we can help the public put them
Yeah.
up.
Just wondering if that's like, something that's important for the public to know.
Absolutely.
I also think that it's important, though, that,
Where they are.
like, I don't know that the public are fully aware when they take on a project like this and they agree
Yeah.
to have bat houses. Bats are protected at all times under our law as our only native species. So it is a long-term commitment to the species to say, yeah, I want a bat house. You can't just say it today and then 2 weeks say, oh, whoops, I made a mistake. I want to put a pickleball
Yeah.
court there
Yeah, yeah.
instead,
Which
So,
would be the
yeah.
case, yeah.
Just making that point.
Yeah, and that's a new policy that I think we need to adopt,
Yeah.
people who are putting them up, is to make sure that those poles are marked,
Yeah.
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you cannot
Yes.
mess with, because I don't think the people understand.
Yeah.
They can't just be taken down
Yeah.
when they change them.
So Kathy, when this SOP comes out, like feedback on that, I mean, I think marking them will be a good thing, branding them in some way. So, yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Our next category of updates is the environmental assessments, and beginning with the east-west arterial.
Sure.
Gina,
Mhm.
please.
So council will remember that we attended, all of us, a meeting, or most of us, between the Ministry of Plahi and the NCC to discuss the east-west arterial generally. It was agreed at the meeting that the Ministry of Plahi would gazette the alignment that represented the EIA alignment of the road between Hearst Road and Woodland Drive / Agricola Drive, and the quarry, which is east of Lookout Gardens. It's known as KP Quarry, for those of you who might know quarry names. After this point, they're proposing to amend the alignment to take the alignment further north. People will recall that, north of Paul Boden's quarry.
Portion that's not been gazetted.
Correct. So they apparently already have the Section 4 notices from Cabinet that they're required to go in and do additional work like geotechnical investigations and any kind of data collection that they might need to inform their choice about the route in that location. Now, initially, we received a boundary plan, which was for the whole route all the way past Paul Boden's quarry, but we queried it, and it's now been confirmed that the bit that they are gazetting is the EIA route
Right.
up to the KP quarry. And this now seems to have been resolved.
Is it been gazetted now? Do we know?
We were asked for our feedback, so that has been written, and they're taking that on board before they actually gazette.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks, Gina. Airports? Who's handling?
Me?
Airports?
EIAs, yes.
We only have two.
So, yes, so the procurement for the consultants to carry out the EIA for the airports was completed by the Airports Authority, and the winning consultant was GHD for the Grand Cayman and the Cayman Brac EIAs. So GHD, some of you will remember way back they were the consultants for the Regen project, which was the landfill project, the waste to energy, the whole sort of big project that is now shelved. So they already have some experience on island, I guess, so that at least working with regulatory agencies, et cetera. So that should help. There should be a kickoff meeting soon with the EAB as normal. That would happen with the consultants. Once the contract has been settled, the airport's authority will let us know and put us in touch then with GHD, and we'll start talking to them about actually conducting EIA. For the Little Cayman Airport, all indications, as you all have seen in the press, I'm sure, are from the government that the Little Cayman Airport is to remain where it is. And CIAA have been kind of working with us on that and working collaboratively with us. So we need to figure out what needs to happen now, what's the next step for that one. But we need to understand more about what exactly they need to do, even keeping keeping the airport at the site, because there was some talk about moving it slightly north, but we don't know how far north, how much movement, exactly. So we're getting all those details and continuing to work with them and the Little Cayman
So even though it's
Airport.
there still is a possibility for some change.
Well,
to it.
we need to they need to tell us what that project entails. And because it triggers a screening for us, it's a national piece of infrastructure, we will have to screen it formally. And council will have to debate that screening opinion to decide whether you agree with however we come down, however the DOE comes down on the side of the screening. So you'll be getting that. I'm assuming that that's how we will have to handle this. They basically prescribe the project, and then we screen the project to see whether an EIA might even be required for that move. Yeah.
Does council have questions of Gina and the EIAs?
For the Grand Cayman Airport, will they be looking at solely going out into the Sound or going the other direction as well? What are the changes that are proposed for Grand Cayman?
Well, the terms of reference were developed, and to be honest, I can't actually remember the details. Definitely looking at going out, because that was the proposal, was to extend the runway, right? But I believe the alternative, looking at they've got to address a set of alternatives in the EIA, and the public were obviously extremely concerned about going out into North Sound, particularly those people who own properties in that sort of general Red Bay Prospect area there. They came out and spoke out at the meeting on the terms of reference. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to be following the terms of reference that were agreed after public consultation. So, yeah.
And the changes for Cayman Brac are primarily, they want to fill in the westerly ponds.
They want to fill in a very narrow strip on the westerly ponds, not fill in the ponds entirely. They need to have a regulation width for the airstrip, is what we were told. And as there is no room to go towards the terminal for that, to get that extra width, they needed to do that on the other side, which means that they're impacting the ponds. So we wanted them to look at drainage and other issues that might be associated with filling in that strip of pond.
That's a 15-foot.
Correct. Yeah.
And they can't go on the other side,
This is what they're saying, that they need to have it.
where there appears to be room.
Mm.
Okay. Kathleen? Thanks, Gina. The new spear gun regulations, John, can you summarize? I mean, council's talked about this in working group session rather extensively. And then you visited caucus too as well.
Yes, sir. So at the last general meeting, council took a decision on how to proceed in 2027 with issuing new spear gun licenses. Subsequent to that, DOE met with cabinet, would ask for a verbal briefing on council's proposal from that last general meeting. We gave them that, we talked over with them. There has been no direction from cabinet or the minister for any changes. Therefore, DOE is still working on to a 2027 rollout with the education component that council said needed to be included. And we will have ample publicity in 2027 when it's ready to go live, so that anybody interested in applying will be able to know what the criteria are and get their application in.
So we're still looking at January 2027, is that right? Timetable for
I think it's a little bit later in 2027, sir, based on the regs, but we need to double check. But yeah, we're still looking for the early to middle part of 2027 for this to start.
Okay.
I believe that the conservation officer was denied,
Pardon?
a new conservation officer request.
For Little Cayman, you mean? Or?
No, because of the spearfishing.
Right. So we had requested an additional 4 conservation officers in the budget, but we didn't get any new posts in the budget. So I have now put in supplementary funding requests, and I'm waiting to hear about that for 2 more, plus another person on Little Cayman, specifically to provide some redundancy there. So we're waiting to see how that
I think
all
this is important as NCC agreed to this particular legislation with the assumption that there would be education component and additional,
an additional
enforcement officers.
capacity. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an important point.
Yeah.
Well, caucus knows
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other comments about spear guns? Okay, let's move on to protected areas where we've got some very positive news. Review. Do we have Jane on
Yes, sir, we do.
Zoom?
Just let me,
somewhere?
she should be joining right
There
now.
she
She's
is.
been standing by in the waiting room. Thank you very much, Jean. Jean is one of the DOE terrestrial research officers. She has been leading on some of the work and will present for both of the protected areas.
Welcome, Jane.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hi, thanks for having me today. I'm going to be giving a brief update on where we're at with the process of formally designating 2 Crown Land nominations for protected areas under the NCA. I have a few slides prepared. I'm not sure if John has them up on the screen.
I don't know, Jean, do you want to share them from you or do you want me to put them up? Figured you might
I
like to do
can
it.
try and share the screen here.
Control your own
It is
screen.
sometimes complicated on a Mac. So if you have them there, John, it might be more
Some
helpful.
product placement. No?
I'm just starting on this end. This will take us a minute or 2 to get this going.
Yeah, so just reminding the council that in this process, it is a somewhat more simple process compared to other nominations, given that we are talking about Crown land only, and because we do have, in principle, support from the proprietor, which is, of course, Cabinet. So we are now at the public consultation stage, which is exciting.
So your first slide, Jane, is up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, but it may not be going out yet.
Wait, hang on. There we go.
Hang on. Hopefully that is, no, that's not working on the Zoom.
I can see it there.
Yeah, but you're seeing the entire screen, including the other parts, right? So let me try.
Now it's better.
You seeing it fine? Okay, well, it seems
Looks
that
good.
they are
Yeah.
seeing it, so yeah.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so the two Crownland nominations we want to talk about are the Ironwood Forest as well as the Cayman Bragg Lighthouse National Park. So if you go next slide, John. Just to jog everyone's memory, you will have seen this come in the past. We are hoping to protect the first piece of the Ironwood Forest. This is one crown parcel, which is a total of 10.3 acres. It is the one delineated in red here, but you can also see the black outline, which is the wider forest, which is in total of 54 acres. We're talking about 10.3 of those, which is immediately adjacent to the UCCI. And the reason why this, as well as the other nomination we'll be talking about, is nominated is very clearly described in each of their nominations, respectively, which is found on conservation.ky, so the council's website. So these nominations will go into why under the NCA these particular areas are important and include the species of specific or special concern, as well as any geological features, environmental, as well as educational and recreational purposes these lands would have under a protected, designated protected areas order. And for this piece of land specifically, we're talking about at least 8 endemic species of plant to the Cayman Islands, and some of which are found nowhere else on Grand Cayman as well, at least naturally. So we're talking about ironwood, as well as the bromeliad Old George and ghost orchids, amongst other things that make the Cayman Islands or Grand Cayman unique actually in the world. So very important piece of land. And hopefully it's also a start to protect the bigger area of the Ironwood Forest. And the next slide, John, is the Cayman Bragg Lighthouse National Park. We spoke about this somewhat recently. This area is also Crown land. You'll see it will be including that parcel marked in red, which is an existing NCA protected parcel. It also will include the actual lighthouse and the lighthouse parcel. It will include the subdivision you'll see just east of Peter's Cave, which is 55 smaller parcels, also Crown owned. It will include Little Cayman Bragg, which is a rock formation entirely separated from the bluff in the ocean on the north side there, and it will include the entirety of Long Beach, as well as 3 smaller parcels, 1 long and 2 smaller parcels of the actual bluff cliff face. What it will not include, however, is the actual Peter's Cave, but it will include the Peter's Cave outlook just east of Peter's Cave. And again, all of the species of special concern, in particular, regionally important brown booby, tropic birds, but also endemic plants, are found there. So again, found nowhere else in the world. And I really do strongly encourage everyone to familiarize yourselves with the nominations on the council's website. Under the Protected Areas tab, there's a tab that says Protected Areas Awaiting Protection or Areas Awaiting Protection. Familiarize yourselves with those as you review and give feedback, which I'll come on to in a bit. So moving on, John, just a brief summary of the public consultation timeline, which officially is launched today. Prior to launching these consultations, the NCC must, of course, consult with adjacent landowners, and they have been notified. For both areas, last week and this week, we sent off registered mail to the adjacent landowners. And so today we launched the public consultation. I'll talk about how you can get involved on the next slide. But just for clarity, the NCC must then put these notices in at least 2 issues of a public newspaper in each of 2 consecutive weeks, which is what will happen on the 12th and the 19th of August. And I believe the printed paper of choice is going to be Caymanian Times. It should be noticed, however, that we will be publishing this in other ways as well, including our social media, and we will be going on, I think it's the Compass next week, to talk about this public consultation process as well. Now, we then have, according to the NCA, a 90-day statutory period for everyone who wishes to do so to give their thoughts and comments. And that technically ends on the 17th of November, but I believe that's a Tuesday, and so we're going to give everyone the week out, which means we're closing officially our comment period on the 20th of November. Then DOE will collate the report of all of the public consultation, reviews, and comments, and we will provide the NCC, the council, with that report on the 27th of November, which gives the council about a week to review, and I will come on to that in the next slide. So as I said, once the public consultation period ends, we will then collate the reports and provide that to the NCC. And this is one of four things that could happen at the end of that. The NCC will have, obviously, the chance to review this report and see what came out of it, and if there's any concerns or anything that needs to be taken into consideration. Now, should the council decide to send the original proposal to cabinet, along with the public submissions, that is what is outlined here on the slide. However, the council can, of course, decide to substantially amend the proposal, in which case another public consultation period will take place. If the council decides to make non-substantial amendments, then the amended proposal can be submitted to cabinet. However, the council can, of course, decide to withdraw the recommendation altogether. So just letting everyone know that what's on the slide is one of four options here. We're, of course, hoping for the best. And we very much look forward to hearing what everyone has to say. So that is the next slide and the last one, I think. So how can the public take part? We have a survey that is open, one for each of the nominations on conservation.ky's website. Again, go under protected areas, and under that, go to areas awaiting protection. That is the actual page address here, but you can find it relatively easily. You can, of course, also write to us, write to the council directly. You can call the DOE, you can comment on the various media that we put out. We will make sure that your voice gets heard. I believe that we would prefer the survey to be filled in, so please do that if you have the means to do so. But otherwise, feel free to comment in any which shape, form you want to. That is very much appreciated. And finally, I think that is it. If there's any questions, other than that, the public consultation period, again, reiterating, will run from the 7th of August to the 20th of November. And I think that is all for me, unless there's any questions.
Council, questions?
Thank you, Jane. That was very thorough.
Thank you.
We'll see you again on December 4th. Thanks, Jane. John, moving on. Oh, this is our Section 41 reports, and I think, Gina, you're going to help us with that.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. So in June 2026, the DOE, on behalf of council, responded to 72 consultations with a 79% on-time rate. In other words, we got 79% of our applications in within the 3-week period or before that. Anything that was over was because we needed additional information that we were waiting for. Usually that is the case. In May 2026, we responded to 84 reviews with an 89% on-time rate. Most of the projects that we looked at were pretty sort of standard applications. There was one controversial project that we have discussed with you in the past. It's the Sea Pool project, sort of adjacent to the petrol storage tanks or the fuel storage tanks at South Sound at Jackson Point. So this is one of the rare projects that we directed refusal for, as you will recall. And this application now that we're seeing represents the fourth time that the applicant has submitted the same application essentially for approval. The sea pool was removed from the first application that was included with the apartments, and then the second application was withdrawn. The third application was refused by the CPA under direction from the CPA, and there's now been a new application for the same proposal essentially. So,
Which
we
was
don't-
heard 2 days ago.
oh, okay, I didn't even know it was on the agenda 2 days ago, but we continue to recommend refusal because we don't think there's any way to mitigate the impacts of that proposal.
Was the application exactly the same? Did they change it at all from the one that was?
It was not,
Refused?
it was not, I think maybe the position of the ladder or something like that, it was substantially the same, yeah.
And with a setback of some 15 feet.
Yeah, it was
That was added, like,
No, that's
No.
been all along.
long,
okay,
yeah,
That's never changed.
okay.
yeah.
No, I would mention, as the National Trust, having our office in Dart Park, which is very close to this
Yes.
proposed area. The experience we had with that Northwester that came all the way up into Dart Park, all the way to the parking lot, it's a terrible idea for the landowner to suggest to want to do this for their own potential property. I just, it's a bad idea for everybody that this ever occurs.
Yeah. Thanks.
So obviously, no one has any news about
No.
CPA's
No decision, no.
decision. Okay. I skipped over Cayman Forward. I skipped over Cayman Forward.
Yes, sir. Just for council, everything has been in the public on this, but council participated in the Cayman Forward Forum, the report of which was released recently by the Office of the Premier. And so there's been no other update than that. Council is just waiting for the formation of the steering committee to come from that comes from that by the OTP to initiate the next steps. Council will recall from looking at the report that those initial next steps are establishing the Strategic Task Force for Action, Reform and Transformation to deliver the recommendations in the report and develop the legislative changes needed to underpin a shared decision-making framework. This is to be led by the Office of the Premier, will include government lawyers alongside representatives from the Department of Planning, Central Planning Authority, the DOE, and of course the National Conservation Council. So when we get that invitation, well, Council will get the invitation. The other thing that we'll be doing is delegating defined categories of planning, or the other top recommendation is delegating defined categories of planning decisions from the CPA to the professional planning officers in the Department of Planning to speed up responses to routine planning applications. As a result of the Cayman Forward Summit, the CPA has already applied to Cabinet for administrative delegation under the current Development and Planning Act as an interim step ahead of longer-term statutory reform. It will also be introducing or trying to introduce binding timelines for how quickly the NCC and CPA must respond to referrals and applications. As Council is aware, for Council's case, this is delegated to the DOE under delegated authority, and the DOE has an agreement with planning to turn those around within 3 weeks. So the Section 41 reviews that we do are generally back to the person who's asking for them within 3 weeks, unless for some reason we have to, for example, speak to the applicant themselves about needing more information. But if we have everything we need, it's in and out in a couple of weeks at most. And the other thing that they will be working on is requiring the National Conservation Council, the Central Planning Authority in Grand Cayman, and the Development Control Board in the Sister Islands to regularly and consistently publish minutes and rationale for decisions taken to increase transparency and accountability. And of course, in NCC's case, as you take your decisions here at the general meetings that are broadcast in public, anybody wants to see what you're thinking, they can just go and watch the record. But so please do keep telling us what you think at these meetings. Yes, sir.
Thank you, John. So just remind us what START
Sorry,
stands for.
START is the committee that's going to get put together by the Office of the Premier. It stands for the Strategic Task Force for Action, Reform, and Transformation. And obviously, if anybody in the council or public wants this, all information is all on the government website. If any council members interested, just let me know. I can send you the link and the information again.
Can you go through that acronym again?
Sorry, START is the Strategic
STA.
Task Force for Action, Reform, and Transformation. It's very fancy.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be the steering committee.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Have they sent out
START
indicated
hasn't
any kind
started
of
as far as we
nominations or
know.
anything like that yet?
But we're waiting. We're waiting. But the two under START, there's a number of different objectives to meet these recommendations within different timeframes, and so 0 to 30 days, as soon as START commences. John pointed out what the NCC is obliged to comply with, and that is getting the minutes and all the decisions and reviews done within 30 days. And so we do that now. So we're in compliance with those recommendations under the very rapid time frame of 0 to 30 days. So I imagine this will probably commence, I hope, in September.
That time frame actually gives us an extra week
Yeah.
that we don't have
Because it was
now.
supposed to be 3. Yeah.
Because you take 21 days,
Yeah.
and our minutes of general meetings are available, or basically broadcast immediately, so are available instantly. Okay, thanks, John. Any questions of Cayman Forward? It will impact the NCA and the NCC and CPA. Hopefully not the legislation dramatically, but it certainly, there will be changes.
Is legislative reviews,
To the NCA?
the NCA?
That was, under the terms of reference, it was a possibility.
Right.
Within the results, as in the post-summit report, if you look at legislative recommendations, there is no mention of NCA being amended. But the Premier did not rule that out.
Well, I mean, obviously stating the obvious that there isn't any legislative change required to affect the recommendations that I've heard so far. So
That's correct.
I'm not sure what the legislative change to the NCA would achieve.
I'm in agreement.
Necessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Geddes, sorry.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yes. I think most of the legislative changes are going to target the CPA and Planning Department. It's the Development Act plan. And okay, let's move on. John, we have Katie Ebanks from DOE on Zoom to make a presentation on the UNESCO bid.
Yes, sir. Katie, handing it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. You can hear me and see me okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Great.
There you are.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you all very much for having me. As Mr. Kirkham said, my name is Katie Ebanks, and I am the Little Cayman World Heritage Program Policy and Coordination Officer. So there'll be a quiz on my title at the end. And I am here to assist in briefing you all and the general public who may be tuning into this meeting online about the history of the Little Cayman World Heritage Project up until this point, what we're doing currently, and where it's going in the future. So I've got this presentation keeps growing as questions come in from the community, so I apologize. It's now going to be about 25 minutes long, and there will be some time for question and answer at the end. So I encourage you to take notes. Let's just get through it, and then we'll answer questions at the end. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. And just confirming that you all can see this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Apologies to those of you in the room who have seen this. I did tweak it a bit for the NCC, but it's going to be a bit of repetitive for a few of you. So, but for those of you who don't know, this will be very exciting. So what is UNESCO? Many of us know this acronym and we've heard it before, but maybe we don't exactly know what it stands for and what it entails. So UNESCO is an organization that was put together by the United Nations in 1947. And actually it was put together in an effort to protect monuments in places of war. And so they wanted to build peace and security through international cooperation and preserve sites of outstanding universal value. And to begin with, those sites were mostly cultural monuments, but that has changed over time into what we know of UNESCO heritage sites today. These are either natural sites or cultural sites or a mix of the two. And no matter what type of site it is, UNESCO and the World Heritage Program, they're looking for sites that bring outstanding universal value to all of global humanity. So you've got some examples there on the screen, but some additional examples that exist that you may have been to yourselves are Niagara Falls, the Great Wall of China, the Great Barrier Reef, places like that. So there are currently over 1,700 sites inscribed as of the meeting 2 weeks ago, only 23 of which are in the Caribbean and only 5 in the Caribbean that are natural sites. So that's important. An important note about what UNESCO status does not mean is that it's important for people to understand this is an international honorary designation. So this by no means imposes any policies, legal titles, ownership, or management over the site and where the site exists, whether that be a city, a county, an island. It is merely an honorary title, and it does come with a lot of benefits, and there are some integral poses that it will bring upon us that we'll kind of talk about later on. And just to introduce the current kind of project stakeholders, we've began a steering committee when this project recently resurrected itself. And that steering committee is composed of a chairperson, Mr. Peter Hillenbrand from Southern Cross Club. He is a permanent resident of Little Cayman, and he spearheaded this effort when it first came to fruition back in 2022. And of course, he approached the NCC, the DOE, ministerial staff and government for support and to get the project up and running, and got it successfully on the tentative list where it sits currently. You've also got myself and Mr. John Bothwell and Ms. Gina Ebanks-Peachy from the DOE. And we have Mr. Sam Rose, not to be confused with Mr. Samuel Rose in government, but this Sam Rose is in the UK, and he's with West Dorset Wildling, and he is somewhat of a World Heritage expert. So he personally has been a part of many World Heritage projects and actually took from start to finish the Flow country in Scotland that was just inscribed in 2024. So he also has special knowledge of natural sites and also within the UK. And then we have Marilyn Carmichael from Sustainable Cayman sitting on the steering committee as well. Important note about this steering committee is that this is going to be a fluid committee that's changing as this process changes throughout time. This is just the beginning, and we expect this and hope actually that this will change according to the needs of the application. Okay, so the project timeline. In 2022 is when this project was initially submitted for an internal preliminary assessment with the UK, and they approved it in 2023 to be on their tentative list. So there were 35 sites that applied, and only 5 made it to that list that still stands today. Little Cayman and also the wetlands on the east coast of England are the only 2 natural sites, and then there's 3 other cultural sites. So again, something important to note. Now the project has been since resurrected thanks to suggestions from the DOE and other stakeholders, and my position was created and put into act in June of this year, so not even 2 months yet. And since then, we've been full steam ahead on amending that internal preliminary assessment. So the preliminary assessment document is sort of the first step in the World Heritage Project process. And so we'll be sending this document into our UK representatives with the Department of Culture and Media and Science next week on the 14th of August. And then we'll have about a month for some back and forth edits, at which point there is a hard deadline for DCMS to submit this bid on behalf of the Cayman Islands, as we are a UK overseas territory, to the UNESCO Secretariat on September 14th. And then we can take a little bit of a breather, and we have 1 year for a feedback process between the UNESCO advisory bodies and ourselves. So for a natural site, the advisory bodies are the International for the Union Conservation of Nature. So the IUCN will be assisting UNESCO in sort of judging our application, the preliminary assessment at that point. And over the next year, we will be feeding back and forth, maybe some things on the preliminary assessment that need to be more robust, things that may be missing, things that they really think are fantastic and want us to kind of hammer home a bit more. So there's a lot of back and forth throughout that year. Once we receive that feedback, we must receive it by October 1st, 2027. And it is 1 year from receiving that feedback that we can then submit the larger nomination dossier. So that nomination dossier, the first time that we can submit that to UNESCO will be October 1st, 2028. Once we submit that nomination dossier, we will have a site visit to Little Cayman, and that site visit will be conducted by someone or several representatives from the IUCN, whoever was part of the advisory body that was looking over our application. They may also send some additional colleagues from DCMS or JNCC, the Joint Nature Conservation Committee, because they'll be involved as well. They may not, we don't know. But they will come for a site visit. We'll have some feedback on the nomination dossier. And then the earliest that we can apply for inscription is February 2030, so that we could be heard at the July 2030 meeting. That's the goal. So these are the minimum deadlines that we need to meet in order for the soonest inscription of 2030. But it's important to note that each part of the process, the boxes must be ticked before you can move to the next part of the process. So we're going to endeavor, of course, to meet all the minimum deadlines so that we can have an answer sooner rather than later. Now, let's say we meet our goal, inscription of Little Cayman, fantastic. Now the project needs to be actively managed. How that is going to happen, we don't yet know, because again, this is a fluid project. It's moving and growing and changing every day based on feedback that we're getting from stakeholders from the ground up and the top down. And so we expect that that will change how it gets managed once we receive inscription. That could be through the DOE, it could become a nonprofit, it could be both. One thing we do know for sure is that whoever is managing it, they will be sending an annual report to UNESCO containing information that is prudent to that designation. So an example could be if we have a large hurricane, they'll want to know about that. If overwater bungalows become approved on Little Cayman, they'll want to know about that. If there is a novel coral disease going around the island, they'll want to know about that. So just a check-in report each year to see how the project and how the site is being managed. Now, to be fair, it is possible that they decide that folks are not managing their properties appropriately or their designated sites appropriately, and they can revoke that status, resulting in a delisted site. This is very rare. In fact, this has only happened 3 times since 1947 out of 1,700 sites, and those are these 3 sites here. In the upper right, you see the Arabian Oryx Sanctuary with 1 lone oryx. That was delisted because they were protecting an endemic population. And unfortunately, due to poaching and development, that population went from thousands to 4 individuals. So it was delisted. The second example is in Germany. It's that bridge you see in the center of your screen. That was delisted because this bridge was constructed out of stone in a way that was very culturally significant to that town. And when the bridge collapsed and they rebuilt it, they did so in a very modern way that they felt did not hold the integrity of the original site. So they delisted it. And then lastly, in the lower right-hand corner, you've got Liverpool, maritime mercantile city. And they decided to eventually delist this because that area continued to have a lot of development in very modern construction practices, and UNESCO decided over time this no longer met the integrity of the city's original bid. So something to just mention here is that none of these delistings happened overnight. They happened over years of feedback back and forth from UNESCO, many annual reports back and forth, UNESCO offering to help these areas with expertise and even in some cases funding. And it was ultimately determined that that status was no longer beneficial for both parties. So it was revoked. Now back to Little Cayman and our site. So natural sites, and they apply, when you apply for a UNESCO World Heritage designation, you can apply for them under 4 natural criteria, and that's aesthetics, geology, ecosystems, and biodiversity. And Little Cayman will be applying for all 4, excuse me. And that is under the direct recommendation of Mr. Sam Rose, who is our World Heritage expert. And we'll talk a bit on the next slide about why that is. In addition to meeting all 4 criteria or applying for all 4 criteria, we are also moving as a steering committee to change the initial application to include all of Little Cayman. The previous application that was on the tentative list was just for the protected areas, which, while excellent in of itself, we wanted to change that again at the recommendation of Sam and the World Heritage experts to the whole island, because this now allows for increased integrity in each of those criteria. So on your screen, you can see all of the protected areas as they currently stand, both marine and terrestrial. And while those are very important, you can see there's lots of open area, which holds endemic species, native species, increased area for unique geology, and things of that sort. So just highlighting the benefits of why we're including all of Little Cayman. It's now going to include all marine and terrestrial biomes, not just those inside of those areas. And as I said, it meets more of those criteria. And while meeting more of those criteria, it opens up the possibility that this application is more successful. So that last point is really important to note, because this process is very detailed, and UNESCO gives a set of application standards which must be met. And if those aren't met in the initial application, you can't then add them later on. So, for example, if we wanted to apply for Little Cayman's protected areas only and not the whole island, the advisory bodies may feed back to us and say, listen, there's not enough terrestrial area included in the geographic boundaries of your bid. So we don't think you actually have the integrity to meet the aesthetics or the unique geology or the ecosystem connectivity, maybe even the biodiversity. So by including all of it up front, then those advisory bodies can feed back to us that actually you do have enough in the protected areas. We don't think you need to include the whole island. Go ahead and remove that. And we can remove it without having to apply for an entirely new designation. So that is just really important to remember throughout this process, that we aim large because it's much easier to pare it back. If we only ask for a few things, we can't then ask for more later down the line. That's not how it works. We would have to do an entirely new application process from the start. So just some examples of these umbrella sorts of designations. So because we're asking for all of Little Cayman, there are many sites throughout the world that hold these sort of umbrella examples. And just a few are in the top picture is the island of Mozambique. This is an island that is a mixed site, both for cultural aspects like that fort that you see down there on the lower part of the island, as well as for natural sites, that little tiny area in green in the center of the island and the reefs surrounding it. But as you can see, this is an island that is highly developed. So there is private property in there, there are homes in there, there are private businesses, yet all of it is under the umbrella of UNESCO international designation. However, they're still able to operate as the island of Mozambique according to their own local laws and legislation. The lower picture is the city of York. So the city of York is a cultural site. However, obviously there are folks that live there and they build their houses according to local laws and zoning plans and development plans, and they do so within UNESCO designation. So just a few examples to show that it can be difficult to convey how umbrella status does cover the whole of Little Cayman, but it does not decide how Little Cayman is run. How Little Cayman continues in its development, its growth, its economy, its tourism, that is entirely up to the Cayman Islands and to us. And UNESCO just oversees, and we'll get a little bit more into that later. So just some general benefits of UNESCO, of course, international recognition and prestige. It's pretty much a guarantee that because of that prestige and recognition, you'll get increased tourism and economic opportunities. There is more access to funding, technical support, and expertise. This is huge because UNESCO sites have access to a plethora of knowledge and also external grant funding that if you do not have a bid site in your host country or your state party, you don't have access to it. So there's a lot of resources available to countries who have a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There's also a potential for increase in market value of private property. This is something that is very well accepted. It's been studied across several peer-reviewed publications, especially in Europe, that places that have UNESCO designation, it actually increases the neighboring market value of businesses, private property owners, things of that nature. And of course, they also have experts that are very well educated in conservation and sustainable management. So they can assist our country however we may wish to ask for their assistance. Again, they don't direct that assistance, but it's a resource to us if we want it. Same with the educational, scientific, and natural benefits. So we can seek them out to assist us with things if we so choose. Increased community engagement. We hope that if this is successful, it is a point of national pride and that people are really proud to have this in their own backyard and that they engage with it. They use it as a way to say, you know, I have a property here, I have a business here, or I went diving here, and it can spread the word of the beauty and the really unique nature of Little Cayman far and wide. And of course, we can't forget, the whole reason that UNESCO started was in war times. And so I have to say that, God forbid, if we ever find ourselves in a unfortunate state of war, not only do we have the UK to assist us, but we also have the backing of the entire United Nations. Now, some stakeholder concerns that we've heard from the community as we're slowly getting this process and word out there is people are concerned about over tourism. In the picture here, you see Venice, where many of us know it floods pretty regularly, and over tourism is something that they're combating quite often. And only in recent years, since 2022, I believe, UNESCO has made a tourism management plan a mandatory part of the application process. That will be included in the nomination dossier, alongside a development plan or a zoning plan. That is also mandatory for the application. And people are concerned about potential additional regulatory or financial burden. But we just have to say, the UNESCO application process is completely free. And again, they do not impose any additional regulations on the state party or the host country that is applying for a UNESCO bid. They merely judge what we put out there and say yes or no, they want to put the UNESCO stamp on this. So a main concern that we're hearing from a lot of people is what this means for their private property. And that is understandable. But we just want to reiterate that this is an international honorary designation. So once a site receives this, UNESCO has no effect on ownership rights. It does not mean we've created a new protected area. As you all know, as the NCC under the National Conservation Act, you have not done that. They have not done that for you. All local, national laws and legislations still apply. So everything will remain as it was before receiving this bid, as it is after the fact. Now, what does this application need? I touched earlier that the nomination dossier will need to see, at minimum in draft form, a development plan or a zoning plan and a tourism management plan for Little Cayman. If they do not have that, the application will be deemed incomplete, and we will either be fed back a year to reapply, or this will be identified somewhere along the feedback process, and we'll have another year to get that finished. But again, a minimum of draft form. It does not need to be enacted as of yet, but with the intention to do so. They'll also need to see management plans for the protected areas that currently exist. And I'm sure they would love to see some species conservation plans. I say I'm sure because we're not privy to looking at the application, the nomination dossier application criteria until we've submitted the preliminary assessment. So we read many nomination dossiers. We have an idea of what they need to include. And based off of the experts that we work with, they tell us some things that we're lacking that will need to be included, such as the management plan and the development plan. But there may be some additional things that we're not sure about, hence the potential need for species conservation plans, obviously with priority on Little Cayman species. And just to end the presentation, we've seen through studies done on other World Heritage sites that this offers significant benefit to the host nation, or the state party, as they call it. But this net impact is completely reliant upon responsible management, adequate resources given to managing that site, and of course, active community participation. If we don't have the support of the country from the bottom up and the top down, this will not be successful from start to finish. So while we're hugely supportive, and personally I hope that this happens, if these other things don't fall into place, then it will not be successful. And that is all I have for you. So does anyone have any questions at this time about anything that I've shared?
I can't believe it. No questions?
Well,
Very thorough. It was very thorough.
It's pretty thorough.
Yeah.
John and I were, part and parcel of this, so we don't really have questions, but please ask away.
Very exciting, Katie. Do
Very
you,
exciting.
where are you in your process of communicating with cabinet ministers? So at the political level, trying to ensure that they understand what this whole bid process is about, and maybe allaying any early concerns.
Great question. So as I said, this position's only been in since June 15th. And unfortunately, before that, the DOE just didn't have the capacity and the resources to really push for this to keep going. So since June 15th, we've been trying to get an audience with first of all, our own minister to brief her and make sure she's aware of what's going on. And then also kind of trickling down from there, making sure that all the ministers that have a direct connection to this project also are briefed and updated and see where their support lies. And so, of course, the premier, the governor, Minister J.E. Banks, Deputy Premier, people who have a direct stake in this, and then the rest of cabinet. And we have thankfully had an audience with many of those ministerial members, and we have verbal confirmation of support. We're also, of course, hoping for signatory support on the preliminary assessment before it goes into the UNESCO Secretariat from many of them. And we have had several meetings where we discussed the need and necessity for those certain plans to go forward in order for this to be successful. And in my opinion, it sounds like most people that we've interacted with, ministerial staff included, have agreed that we want to keep Little Cayman as it is for many generations to come and enjoy. And so I think everyone pretty much feels the same about that across the board. And the ministers, I would say, felt the same. And we have their support. It's just a matter of having everything else fall into place in a relatively short frame of time. So for the PA getting submitted next week, each of them have been given a copy of the most updated draft. I just sent to them yesterday, and they have an opportunity to feedback and comment on that draft. And then we'll be asking for signatory support before that goes to DCMS next week. And then from there, hopefully we can make moves on the necessary items needed for that nomination dossier. And that is completely reliant on their support, because the DOE, while leading this project, there are portions of this project that we cannot lead on, and those need to come from within those other ministries.
Clearly, thank you very much. Anybody else have some queries of Katie?
Katie, I have just a quick question. I think I know the answer, but just clarify. On the timeline, you mentioned the inscription process, July.
Sorry, Tim, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you lean in closer
Is
to
that
your
better
mic
if
or
I
use
talk closer
Gina's?
to the microphone? Sorry about
Perfect,
that.
thank
Yeah. The timeline showed the inscription process July 2030, or the submission for July. Does the whole thing take place at one of their meetings and we'll get to hear at the same time? Is that how it's worked? The announcement will be made almost simultaneous as the submission and their meeting?
Good question. So if we meet all of our minimum deadlines for the various parts of this project, the preliminary assessment, the nomination dossier, the site visit, all of those things, we then submit our final nomination dossier after all of the feedback, February 1st, 2030.
Okay.
And that's to be heard at their annual meeting in July of 2030. And we heard within a few days of that meeting happening 2 weeks ago, the 25 newly listed sites from that meeting.
I got
So it doesn't happen all at once, but we do hear the news almost immediately after it's happened.
Excellent. So July 2030 is the day we're looking for.
Yeah.
Great. Anybody else?
I'll just point out that I thought Katie did a great job of showing that for people that own land in Little Cayman, it won't restrict people's ability to do what they like with their land, and in fact will increase property values for them. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, thank you for saying that. And that's because of the feedback that we've been hearing from concerned stakeholders over some of the potential misinformation about what this project means for people and, on the direct level. So I encourage all of you to, if you talk about this with folks in conversation, please do reiterate that, because I think that people have a misunderstanding of this now means it's another level of who's telling me what to do with my property. And
Right.
it's just not true. As a landowner in Little Cayman, it's just not true.
Hi. So I just wanted to clarify. People currently don't have the ability to do whatever they want with their land. They still have to adhere to planning,
Of course.
controls with input on environmental impacts. So that's not going to change. The development plan has to be drawn up for Little Cayman. It's part of, we have to have one in at least a draft form. So I don't want us to say things inadvertently that someone can pick up on at some later stage and say, but you said it wouldn't, people could do whatever they wanted with their land. Well, they can't do that now.
Yeah.
So
It's not going to change.
the same principle applies. The controls will be dependent on what the government of the day and what the
Yeah, the
people of
local
the
laws.
country are willing to accept. It may very well be that when we put those documents into UNESCO, they look at them and they say, this isn't good enough. We do not have the controls that we need to ensure the long-term survival of this site. So there is a balance to be had here in terms of, putting reasonable controls on development and impacts, the ability to mitigate impacts, and allowing development to go ahead in the UNESCO site. It's absolutely true. Everything that Katie has said is absolutely correct. Like she pointed out about the city of York, obviously they continue to develop and redevelop as they need more space, et cetera. But there are planning controls in place, and there are rules about listed buildings and so forth, So it's basically, the site comes with privileges and with prestige, but also with obligations to manage it. Yeah. I guess is the best way that I can sum it up. So thank you for that, just allowing me to say that.
It's important to say.
Well, the bid currently exists in a vacuum in terms of zoning, development plans and zoning.
Exactly.
And a vacuum in terms of a tourism plan.
Yeah.
And both of those are going to be required, as well as biosecurity.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, thanks very much. All right, thank
Thanks,
you, Katie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay.
Bye, Katie. Thank you.
Bye.
As soon as John finishes typing,
Yes, sir.
we have the next two general meeting dates to jot down and confirm when we're a little closer to the date, but October 2nd and December 4th. And Jane's presentation highlighted the importance of the December 4th
Yes.
in terms of the areas with pending protection. And October 2nd, does anybody have any conflicts that we should know of at this point? Those two dates.
We know.
Okay, so mark those in your calendars, please. And is there any other business?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to just briefly report on the Marriott Beach restoration. I think people might be expecting to hear about that.
Yeah.
And whilst it's not exactly a council issue, generally the department has been involved, obviously, and there have been comments made on behalf of council in terms of our reviews, et cetera. So just to say that we've obviously been closely monitoring that situation. And the sand, which arrived last week, I think. Yeah,
First batch.
first batch, yes, was tested. And we can confirm that just sort of this morning, we received confirmation from our consultant coastal engineer that it was suitable for the 7 Mile Beach restoration, the Marriott restoration purposes. The thinking is that Marriott will start to place the sand as early as next week. We at DOE are hoping to get a drone image taken today. We're worried about the weather. It might have been too rainy, but we intend to capture an image of the site before they start the placement. We've got another image already, sort of when they were constructing the groins. Overall, we've been pretty satisfied with the construction and their environmental mitigation methods that they propose. They've really been following their methodology. So overall, we've been generally happy with that. So I don't know if anybody has questions, but that's the update. Yeah.
Where's the sand coming from?
It is coming from the Bahamas.
Do we know where in the complicated, like the
Yeah, it's a
impact on-
licensed site. It's oceanic. It's not a land-based sand site. It's in the ocean. And it's a site that they've licensed for this purpose. They supply sand for nourishment exercises in Florida, Jamaica, other places.
When they bring the sand in, is there screening of any kind for, well, those organisms, pathogens?
Okay,
Yeah.
so
I mean, that's
the
a
Department of
lot to do, but still.
Agriculture, like I said, it's in the ocean. So there's
Yeah.
not a lot of scope for that, pathogens that are not shared already. But DOA have visited that site and they've looked at the place of
in
extraction. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they've also looked at, where it's loaded, et cetera. So they've given their blessing. They handle that part of it. The Department of Agriculture, I should stop using acronyms.
Yeah. we got
So
a lot.
they've done that assessment and have signed off on it from their perspective.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's
And do
true.
we share coral diseases with the Bahamas? I mean, I assume.
Well, Skittledees kind of
Skittledees everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
So there's
that's
nothing new, novel that would be introduced.
well, that was a question.
Not that we're
Ultimately,
aware
a
of.
question anyway.
No.
It's not really coming from a coral reef area. It's kind of an offshore sandbank.
Yeah.
As Gina's mentioned, it's actually an oceanic production of sand rather than a coralline production of sand. It's still
Oh, right.
it's,
In that
yeah,
sense.
it's oolitic aragonite, so it's produced by sunlight and ocean activity. So where the sediment is being stirred up by large Atlantic waves and sunshine and shallow warm water, the sand precipitates out of the environment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if you get to walk on the beach, you might notice if you look at it, it's kind of, well, it's a spear shape rather than the typical grain size that we have here.
Fascinating.
But it's used widely around the Caribbean for beach nourishment exercises and largely considered a renewable resource because it's constantly being generated. Hence why they have so much.
Yeah, I was wondering that. How they continue to supply to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different process
Yeah.
than our sand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I neglected to ask Katie if there was anything the council could do to support the work. And
yeah.
perhaps Gina, and you might be able to
I mean, I think that.
pass that along.
Yeah, I will definitely, and so will John, I'm sure, who's Katie's direct manager. But I think that primarily it's going to be assisting with getting the messages out that you heard on the
Yes.
presentation now about, what it actually means, the designation, what we as a country need to do, the fact that this is by no means a done deal, that they actually have to approve what we send in. So it is an evaluation process that we are basically going to have to be subjected to. And hopefully just amplify the messages that you've heard and pass them on. And if we need help, we'll definitely come running to you. So, yeah.
Overall, it's not that. The process itself doesn't seem that complicated. You check 1, check 2, check 3.
Yeah.
pretty much. Just so people have to understand that it's not just because it says United Nations. I think maybe people getting the idea. They're thinking more on the maybe at least a little bit of feedback I've heard back. They're thinking more from the United Nations from the political process side,
Right.
and that's why they're mixing it up.
Yeah.
Not realizing it's an arm of the United Nations that deal with a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And of course, one of those check boxes is going to be the management plans, as Katie mentioned. And so they all have to come through the council. So that's where we
Yes.
bring you all to work
Absolutely.
again
Review
for
of
the
those.
country.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Is
well,
there any other business? Thanks, everybody. To be heard? Okay.
not for now.
Well, thanks for your input and your attention. Meeting is adjourned.
Oh. Okay.
Several government administrations and a host of legislators spent over a decade and numerous rounds of public consultation agreeing the specific provisions of the National Conservation Act, which passed unanimously in 2013. The Act establishes the National Conservation Council that was created to promote and secure biological diversity and the sustainable use of natural resources in the Cayman Islands. Many in our community feel directly the continuing loss of Cayman's natural heritage and are growing increasingly concerned that our native habitats and unique plants and animals will not be known by the generations that follow us. At present, the Act provides the only legal means of giving effect to the constitutionally protected principles of sustainability, whereby social, economic, and environmental perspectives have equal weight at the table. The National Conservation Council has a mandate to ensure that we can continue to enjoy the magic of Cayman's biodiversity for many generations to come. But to be successful, we all must work together as a community to build and preserve the Cayman that we want and wish for our children to inherit.
What if there was a way for science to reliably predict the outcomes of certain actions before they caused irreversible damage? Well, we can't quite do that, but we can come close with an EIA. It's understandable why an environmental impact assessment is often misunderstood to investigate only how a project will impact the environment. But an EIA is so much more than that. An EIA brings together scientists and experts from different disciplines to explore the major parts of a big project. They assess what the likely impacts will be for all of us, both socially and economically, as well as for wildlife and the natural environment. An environmental impact assessment also shows how all the different parts of a project can work together to reduce things like air and noise pollution and avoid unwanted outcomes like increased flooding or other severe and costly unintended impacts. It's important to remember that an EIA is not a decision. It's an information report that usually explores multiple options, so people can weigh the pros and cons of each one of them before they make their fully informed decision. In Cayman, the EIA includes a public consultation, which ensures that we all get a chance to say what should be considered and that it has been done properly. While this may seem like a lot of work, an environmental impact assessment only adds 1% or 2% to the cost of a project, while the benefits of knowing how best to proceed, priceless.
Our rich and diverse natural environment is one of our most important assets. Our clear turquoise waters, vibrant reefs, and white sand beaches attract visitors to our shores every year. Our dry forests provide refuge for wildlife and revitalize our soil. But our islands provide us with so much more than that. These same natural assets can also protect us from disasters. Strong coral reefs are our first line of defense against intense storm waves. Healthy seagrass beds and mangrove forests slow down powerful waves, protect the coast, and provide a nursery for the sea creatures we depend on. Native coastal plants, like mangroves and sea grape trees, fortify our coastline and reduce the risk of erosion and flooding from storms, while our native forests stimulate our rain cycles and help to control inland flooding. From ridge to reef, we are nurtured by nature. Stop, take a picture, breathe it all in. Our incredible Cayman Islands are home to everything we love. We need to protect their natural bounty so they can continue to protect us. Cayman is partnering with the UK governments to better understand how nature can keep our communities safe and create new opportunities for jobs and livelihoods. Economic resilience requires environmental resilience. Our climate is changing, and so is Cayman. Stronger and more frequent hurricanes, longer periods of drought, sea level rise, and higher temperatures are already impacting our communities, livelihoods, and our security. While we alone can't prevent the changing climate or natural disasters, we can act locally to minimize the impact to our communities. If we take nature into account before we act, we can harness nature's benefits and reduce the devastation caused by natural disasters. Cayman is partnering with the UK government to identify solutions to reduce the risks of flooding from storms, improve the ability of our lands and seas to bounce back after disasters and make them healthier, and to use the strength of nature to fortify the coastline and protect the landscape around our homes. We are nurtured by nature, because when we put nature front and center, nature can provide the solutions.